Hi there, this is Jim Tolles. I'm a spiritual teacher and I blog regularly at spiritualawakeningprocess.com. Today I want to talk about when the spiritual path fails you. There's a lot of different ways where people feel like spirituality is going to fail them or has failed them. And I can kind of describe a couple of scenarios. One of the scenarios that comes to mind is the scenario where somebody has never been spiritual and they have some sort of shift, revelation, or a big awakening that moves them out of their old life. And it starts this process of deconstructing a lot of different things. But it usually, at some point, especially in this scenario, somebody finds something new to grab onto. And so a lot of things kind of get stripped off the walls of the prison cell, and then something else shows up. It's like, aha, this is it. This is what I need. And this becomes the person who really gets into yoga, or they really get into Buddhism, or they get into Christianity, or they get into, it doesn't really matter what they get into. They get into something because they feel like they now have meaning again, they have guidance again, and they start to cover up the very walls that were starting to be exposed. The thing that wants this sort of certainty, that wants safety, that's been scared, right? That was what was starting to get illuminated, these unconscious parts of our belief system, of the unconscious ego. That was starting to be revealed. And now they're it's being hidden again, and the walls are being covered up again, right? And so the prison cell now looks a lot different. And so somebody, they may make some, wonderful changes in their lives too, in this process. One hopes that they have dealt with like issues they hadn't dealt with before. When in the past they were just trying to get the car and make lots of money or get the perfect spouse, or all these different stories that we have built up in our head that may have gotten blown up for this individual in this scenario. And you have other people who've been longtime believers of a tradition, and then some difficult event or even tragic event comes up, and it's like, well, how does spirituality address this? And so what you see in common here is that you have to start to go in more deeply into your core beliefs, into what it is you think spirituality is going to get you, because that's usually another game of the ego. It's like, I'm going to use this thing over here to make myself feel good. I'm going to hang around the spiritual teacher so I'll always feel good. I'm going to just do lots of yoga so I always have that wonderful endorphin high. And so in this scenario, you're getting an idea that the ego wants to feel. It wants a feeling. So in wanting just a certain type of feelings, it's blocking out all the range of other feelings and expressions that we have in life. And that's not how the spiritual path truly is. So a lot of what you have here in the whole spiritual path is failing me mentality is that you've really come up against your limited ideas about what spirituality is, and that spirituality really does embrace the whole of life. And the whole of life means there are some very enjoyable things and there are some very painful things. Some of the painful things become really important teachers in our lives, and some of the enjoyable things actually are prisons. And so in embracing everything, we really allow ourselves to become much more dynamic and to continue growing and whatnot. A lot of times people come down these other paths and they'll get stuck because they're just unwilling to look within. Even when they think they're looking within, they're not, right? They're just kind of doing what's prescribed. It's like, well, this is what I'm supposed to do as a meditator. And my teacher says I need to meditate for 30 years or whatever. And I don't know why teachers say these things, but it's usually because they don't fully understand. They haven't fully looked inside. And, in past videos and blogs, I talk about there are different types of spiritual teachers out there. And that they all serve certain functions, certain roles. And as you go, you'll find that some people are useful for a while and helpful, directing you back to yourself. And then you kind of get stuck and there's nothing further to learn there. And so you continue on in your journey. But this is very different than trying to find the next best thing, which is another aspect that happens when the spiritual path seemingly fails. You're like, well, I got to go find the next best thing. And so now you're doing different psychedelic journeys. And it's like, well, then you get to a certain point, and I got to find the next best thing. And so it's ever continuing outwards, as opposed to appropriately on the spiritual path, we continue to go inwards, to keep finding new levels of like delusion and unconsciousness within ourselves and blind spots. In one of my blogs, I have 5 tips for finding your blind spots, and some of those really are asking other people, people who are close to you who can see you in some respects clearly. And of course, this is always a charged thing to do because a lot of people also project their own blind spots onto you. But it's worthwhile sort of thing to do to start to understand, how am I seeing my life? What am I trying to create here? because otherwise, if you don't do that, you just keep carrying the same core issues along with you. If before you were looking for the one, right, that perfect spouse, romantic partner, you take that in the spiritual world, now you're looking for the soulmate. It hasn't actually changed. You're using different terms, you have maybe different ideas, but this to me is this, once again, the metaphor of wallpaper in your prison cell. So you took down the old wallpaper and you put up a new set, and it just has different colors. Doesn't mean anything's really changed. There's this deeper thing that needs to be looked at around what it is you think you're going to get in having a spouse. What does that do for you? Is this, part of that core physiological urge to breed that's being revealed here? Is that part of the society's ideas about what it means to be a valuable member and, certain things you're supposed to do? It's part of, passing on your lineage of your clan. These types of kind of core tribal things are often hidden down there. But if you don't look into them, if you just keep adding on new layers and call it spiritual, you're not really following the spiritual path. And this is the truth of life, of spirituality, that at the highest levels, it's all embraced. And so you can't really fail at it. But in this world, to really embrace the spiritual life means to go inward specifically. So it's important to kind of create this understanding between kind of higher truth and truth of the moment. Higher truth embraces all colors on the canvas. But in the moment, we certainly prefer certain colors in our lives, certain kindness and certain enjoyable things. And it's okay to want to cultivate that. But until we understand all the paints we're using and how we're using the brush and all those types of things, because those are all aspects of the tool that is us, then there's going to be a lot of surprises coming from us. Doesn't mean life won't continue to give us surprises. There are aspects of control people are trying to do with the spiritual path that they think if they have the right belief system, the right guru, the right teacher, the right savior, whatever, somehow life is going to be safe. It won't be. That's not a function of the spiritual path. The spiritual path is simply bringing yourself inwards to be here now, to fully be here now, and to see things as they are, not as we'd like them to be. And these seem like platitudes, but there's a lot of truth to them, and you have to do the work to go inwards to really understand them. Otherwise, they are just ideas, right? I'm sure plenty of you can hear these things. Well, like, I know all this already. It's like, well, you probably conceptually do, but I don't think your heart does. And when it's down in kind of the gut level into the physiology of you, where it's just like you understand this on that base level of the body, that's a very grounded place to be in the truth, and people can't knock you out of that. And you don't say these things unmindfully. And a lot of people say a lot of these things like everything is love. They say it very unmindfully because they don't realize what they've just included in everything. There's a lot of very painful, nasty things that go on in this world. And while that is part of the canvas, and the canvas accepts all of it, we have very strong choices about what we're going to develop in our lives. And we have to make those choices. And we have great influence on our kind of local sphere of connection, and how we influence our family and friends and so forth. So these are all types of things to start to understand as you kind of become re-empowered. As you turn inwards, you become more and more powerful in your own space and in kind of your local space of the people around you, as I said. So in this way, it becomes the whole idea of failing starts to go away too, because you're here and now, and you already understand that life is going to do what life is going to do. And whether you're at a high level of consciousness or whatever doesn't really matter as much as being here now, staying engaged with what's coming, and being as open-hearted as you possibly can. And in this way, the whole success-failure thing starts to disappear because it just becomes organic and natural that this is how you want to respond and live your life. And you're no longer trying to get something. As long as you're trying to get something from spirituality, you will be disappointed at some point. And I really encourage you to drop the getting. And if you've come to one of these moments where you feel like you're being failed by it, this can actually be a great thing because now you can let go of the external search. This can be one of those sacred turning points to truly turn inwards. And if meditation no longer works for you, then you do just let that go. And if it's because you weren't really meditating in a way that was inward focused and you're trying to make yourself feel good, then that mentality is let go and the meditation continues, but in a deeper and truer way. So I hope these are some helpful thoughts for you as you continue on your spiritual journey. Once again, my name is Jim Tolles. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, and you can always find me at spiritualawakeningprocess.com. Take care.